News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Welcome to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning.
And I'm Allan Gilwith with darkoakmedia.com.
And I'm Maximilian, wishing you all a belated happy International Zebra Day.
There we go. This is the stuff we expect from you, Max. So when was National Zebra Day?
It was like
International.
Tuesday.
Now, how do you celebrate that, Allan? Knowing Allan, it would be barbecued zebra, but I hope not, Allan. I'd like to think you're a decent enough person.
I think you should wear stripes that day. just point out.
Now how about watching the movie Stripes?
Yeah, well, that works.
Is it true that zebras are not really smart, or are they smart, Allan? Because I feel like I was watching a documentary about zebras, and there was reasons that the lions pick them off so easy. But
No. Zebras are a good equine.
Okay.
However, they don't mind us.
Oh,
They grow up and have their own brains. So we don't think we don't have a lot of respect for them because they don't have a lot of respect for us.
okay. That's why you don't see people riding around on them. Because a zebra would be cool if you could harness it like a horse.
They would be extremely cool, but they're not having that.
Okay. Well, hey, Max, that's what we expect from you. Well done, sir. Appreciate that. If you want to weigh in and tell us how you celebrated International Zebra Day, you can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And, of course, we also invite you to interact with us on Tool Talk Radio's Facebook page. You can send us messages. You can send us real-time messages, and we pretty much answer in real time. I like to think, Allan.
Well, somewhere in the space-time continuum, we call it real time.
One thing that happens occasionally is we get so engrossed in our conversation that we don't get to everything I teased last week. So this week we're going to get to the must-have item of the week that we didn't get to last week, because it's a pretty great item. It's one of these I think most homeowners should have in their toolbox. It's and Allan brought us that one. So later in the show, Allan, if he this is one of these things, depending on if duty calls, that could change. But it looks like our buddy Jay Hill with Big M Roofing and Remodeling is going to be in the house today.
Oh, he needs to be.
Yeah. You've been working with him this week,
Yes,
right?
yes, I have.
I was working with one of his guys about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I don't know, something like that. So he'll be here. And, of course, so if you've got any questions about roofing or really anything to do with the exterior protection of your home, windows, gutters, siding, he's kind of becoming the armor plating for your home. That's the way to look at it. So this is good. In great moments in building history, we want to showcase a little Memphis positivity here, Allan. So we're going to talk about the Peabody Hotel.
Oh, yeah.
Need we say anything else? I mean, the Peabody Hotel, I like to believe that anybody that's lived in the Mid-South for any time has been to the Peabody.
It's one of those bucket list icon kind of places.
Mm-hmm.
People all around the world, honestly, will spend years waiting to just spend the weekend at the Peabody.
Yeah. Now, I have to admit, I've never stayed at the Peabody. I've visited many times. I know the downstairs very well. But, yeah, I can't say it. And I've been to the ballrooms upstairs. But
wait till you see some of the prize rooms.
Uh-huh.
You're going to love this. Have 7-foot doors.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting, and then, of course, there's rumors
a great
that it's
reason
haunted.
why. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff we're going to unpack in there.
A lot of legends.
Great moments in building history. Allan, I hope you didn't over-tease this. You said that your Allan's Week in Review is gonna be pretty epic.
It will be.
Okay.
I promise.
All right, it better be. So, let's see. I'll tease one more thing because I don't want to overdo it. But Allan, we were talking about infrastructure and the importance of a city having, good city planning, but really your home should have a solid infrastructure. And some of that might be work that you do to protect your home and to keep it basically operating for these times like we saw this week with the cold.
Yes.
And I just saw an example of a failed infrastructure this morning on the way here, and that's going to tie in perfectly. We hope everybody we hope you hung in there during the storm. We had the weirdest storm. It was a three-phase ice storm / snowstorm.
Yeah.
But I would say most of the Memphis area dodged a bullet. I think they got it worse up north, right?
Some of us closer to the Mississippi line got hit a little harder than the other folks.
Oh, so it was the southern. Okay, gotcha.
A lot of it went north of us, but there's always that little bit that tries to sneak just under the city.
Yeah.
And I magically chose that part of the city to live in.
Okay, you sort of dodged a bullet too. So anyway, it's all coming at you today on Tool Talk Radio. But before we get to any of that, Allan, I've got sort of a tech conversation I wanted to have.
Ooh.
Actually, I don't even know if this is tech. It's more about the technology of home building. But this is not a new topic to Tool Talk Radio. But Allan, we've talked about the future of home building,
yes,
and what that might look like, and also just the changing nature of people's sensibilities. I want to kick it off by saying one thing that just fascinates me is when you drive around town and you see these scooters just laying by the side of the road.
Right.
So basically, if you've ever wondered what that is, I know people probably see those too.
It's a scooter sharing system, isn't it?
Scooter share, bingo,
yes.
Right there. You have an app on your phone. You hit whatever payment option, and then it unlocks the wheels, I guess, and hopefully they're fully charged, and you zip down to wherever you're going to be, and then you just leave it laying there, and somebody else uses it. And
it's just really cool.
And I think there a lot of younger people I know have a more disposable, like they don't. I know young people that couldn't care less about owning a car. They just want to get somewhere.
Right.
They don't necessarily have the love of an item or anything like that. So I guess I would say changing sensibilities and then the advancing technologies is sort of what's intrigued me here. And with that in mind, I want to talk about boxable homes. And it's spelled Boxabl. They left the
Boxable. Okay.
Boxable homes, and I think we've brought this up before. But if you're new to it, boxable homes are basically these. They're made completely in a factory, and these things are almost ready. They're almost like what you call plug and play.
Right.
They drive the one of the things that we've seen in the past. Building a home. A pre-made home is not new. What's new about this is the fact that it folds up.
Yes.
To a pretty small size. I've seen people pulling these on their own truck or something like that. They're, in fact, one guy was pulling one on a Tesla,
Yeah,
so.
wow, okay.
Because apparently, I guess Elon Musk lives in one of these. But Allan, what intrigued me is the notion that you could fold a home up. This is not a big home. This is like a little less than 400 square feet. However, it's a full studio apartment. You unfold this thing in the course of an hour, and it's got a solar roof. It's got a bathroom, a kitchen, a full, washer, dryer, a couch, a fireplace. It's got everything that you would need to live, and you basically just hook it up to some utilities, and you're ready to roll. And I guess what intrigues me is the notion that I don't know that anybody's going to want to just necessarily. You're not going to raise your family in a 400 square foot home. However, what if you had 6 or 7 of these things attached, and then you decide to move across the country and take your home with you or something? I think that's sort of.
Now they just need like a military Chinook helicopters to transport them.
Well, honestly, you get a moving truck, a crane, and I just think the future of home design is just going to look a lot different.
Well, technology is constantly changing.
Right.
Things are always, what's a good idea and what's a bad idea is 30 years down the line.
See, that's what I keep wondering. How is this thing going to age?
Yeah, because, I'm old enough that I remember that we were all going to live in bubbles.
Oh.
You remember that one?
The dome thing. That was a
dome.
very short, wasn't that a 70s
Yeah,
thing?
that was a very short-lived, hey, we're all going to live in the future.
Is that called like a geodesic dome?
Yes. That's when buckyballs became very popular for about a week.
Right.
Now, what I do like about the Lego style homes and now the new boxable style homes is that they are pretty much a turnkey idea.
Right.
So let's just say, for the sake of argument, not necessarily as a permanent dwelling, but let's say you were going to be on a job site somewhere for an extended period of time.
Well, there you go. Exactly. That's where I was going with
that
this.
is like, you would just back the construction truck up, you would deliver it, you would drop it in. It's already got a solar roof. It's already going to have the battery to control things. It could be an off-the-grid instant house.
This now the boxable home. I forgot to mention too. The big selling point is at the moment they're like $60,000. This is a house you could literally drop it in place
and play
and live in. Now you do need to pay for a few things like the utilities, depending on where you drop it. If you drop it somewhere near utility lines and water, it's not cost prohibitive to do this. And then, like you said, suppose you're Craig Brewer, our buddy, the film. Maybe when he goes to a remote film project,
yes,
and he's going to be there for 6 months, he just brings his boxable home with him,
has one,
folds it up. The crew's got their own, and then you.
I could actually see an Acme boxable home rental company.
That's what I'm
Pods
saying.
Or something. You could actually pull up into XYZ city, call up the home delivery service and say, hey, I'm going to be here for a year.
Right.
Can you have this delivered to? And I can see where you could have a on-grid package and an off-grid package.
Right.
So it would come with a water tank and a storage battery, or it would come with hookups.
Yeah.
So you could just, I guess, almost like a trailer park.
That's what I'm wondering, because I think the thing. Well, thinking of trailers, the construction of trailers wasn't. The quality wasn't there. We should say these boxable homes are very well made. There's almost no waste because they're made in a factory. There's a combination of robotics and also of 3D printing. There's things that are but the waste is so much less, and for that reason, that's why they can sell a move-in home for $60,000. I mean,
well, we've even talked about this. There is now a scaled up, basically, for the lack of a better phrase, a 3D printer that prints in concrete.
I mean,
and
right.
You could bring this to your job site and honestly begin printing a building.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, the technology has, in just the last 10 years, we have technologies now that make the ability to make something. Honestly, we could never actually do this before.
Well, see, that's what's changing everything. That's what's changing, possibilities. Because
the thought that you're going to 3D print wall structures, well, it's now completely possible, and the 3D printer prints in layers, so it can do the strengthening spaces and like you look in the side of a piece of cardboard.
Right.
A cardboard is just 3 pieces of paper.
Sure.
There's an outside, there's an inside, and then there's that little crinkly piece in the middle that provides all the strength.
Yeah.
Well, imagine actually printing that as a part of the stud.
Yeah, exactly. And
less
no
material,
waste.
greater
Right.
strength.
The other part of this that's intriguing to me is because the boxable home, I would say, is more of a proof of concept. I mean, it's like I said, it's less than 400 square feet. However, what if the concept of a collapsible or foldable home? What if you want a 3,000 square foot home? You can do that, and you want to fold it up and take it with you, or these walls just clip out. This roof comes off. So really, it would be I would say in the future, people that are working with construction, they might be more like movers and assemblers, like it's a giant IKEA situation.
Wow. That was just I don't know if that was a scary thought or a happy thought. Now, I'm also thinking disaster relief.
Oh, there you go. That's another good use.
A big bad event happens, and a lot of people need to be in this area, but they perhaps need to be here temporarily.
Right. Well, see, part of the boxable mission is to have, everybody's talking about more sustainable things where we don't waste as much. Well, the notion that you could move things and maybe temporary structures or things that just don't have as much waste. I don't know. I'm very intrigued with where this is going, and this is sort of just the beginning because I know there's a lot of other companies that are doing this, and the more competition, the better results we usually get.
That's what I'm wondering. I mean, what's going to happen with this kind of technology? Let's say 7 years from now. Now that a few have been built, and we've critiqued that we really like this and we didn't like that, and what would have been great is what if we'd moved the bathroom 2 feet over to the left? You know, that little tweaks, things that happen only because you're actually building and using the product.
I think another thing to consider, Alan, is just the disruption, you could say. How many times have we, maybe you live next door to a place and they're building a home or they're doing a remodeling project and it's been going on for 6 months and there's noise and there's, this situation, you pour the slab and they assemble it in like a day or two. So
there's just something about this sort of like train of thought that like people are kind of going about this way in the future. It kind of makes me think of how, remember this conversation we've had a while back, how the more advanced we become, the more organic our technology will be. Mm-hmm. But I kind of like how this is sort of hearkening back to what our ancestors did back in the day. They had yurts, they were hunter-gatherers. And so I like the idea of not only our structures becoming more organic, but we're hearkening back to what our ancestors were able to do to survive back then.
Well, that's a good point, Max. And something, okay, thinking of your yurt. Mm-hmm. The other thing, look at the cost savings. Okay, you can buy this boxable home for $60,000. You could literally just own this thing outright. Right. Or your mortgage is like $250 a month or something.
It's true.
It's very affordable. Imagine owning your own your own home outright and it's movable. I think that just opens up a lot of possibilities. Like, you know what? I'm ready to move to California. I'm ready to move to whatever. And you just find yourself a plot of land and boom.
Well, the thing I'm wondering, all right, so we're going to have electrical, we're going to have plumbing, we're going to have incidentals that go with this.
Right.
I could honestly see a subdivision being built with landing pads.
See,
there's the plumbing, there's the electrical, here's your hookup, here's your thingy. Just tell us what model you want to install, and we'll have the pad ready for you for instant clip-in.
Well, the reason I'm going down this road, Alan, is because I'm not going to lie. You've been to my house. I have this huge property.
You do,
and it's in a nice part of town, actually. And I'm sitting there looking at it, going, "This is a lot of grass to cut. This is a lot." Well, that could be a little community back
I know.
there. I don't know.
You're a yard work Philistine. You have this amazing work back there, and you're going, I think a parking lot would look good here.
It just gets me thinking, but I don't think this is bad, and I'm not one of these. I've never been one of these doom and gloomers of, well, the robots are going to put us out of business. No, it just things
business
change.
Just changes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, my curiosity to this is going to be in the actual usability of it.
Yeah.
It looks great on paper. It looks fabulous as a prototype. But until you've got about 100 of them out there with 100 different people living in them, that you start to find what really works. And, maybe this was a great idea on paper and maybe it wasn't so hot in reality. But I don't think this idea is going to go away.
No,
I
don't
think
either,
it's probably especially since you brought up 3D printing, with 3D printing becoming so prevalent.
Right.
I mean, honestly, if you want to own a 3D printer, all right, dear listeners, wherever you are out there, you can go to almost any tech supply store or online.
Oh, yeah.
And you can buy a small hobby grade 3D printer for honestly less than a couple of $100 these days.
Yeah.
I mean,
what, 20 years ago, a 3D printer was science fiction.
Yeah, this was something that was it was in the movies. You printed stuff. Today we're using technologies today that couldn't even possibly exist 20 years ago.
Well, you said something
and this is just amazing where it can take us.
Well, you said something important, and I it's not going away. And it's just like somebody that maybe when fuel injection was new to cars, and they're like, well, I'm a carburetor man or something. Well,
That's
do
true.
we have any carburetors in cars anymore? No. I mean, those things are obsolete, and they're not happening anymore. So there's just some things that are just going to change.
Gasoline is about to be obsolete in cars. So
well, that's the thing. It's like nobody's going, oh, I want a vehicle that gets 3 miles to the gallon. Nobody, nobody cares about that anymore.
There's a niche, but the idea here, I'm just really thinking like, okay, so we're gonna be opening up a farm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, instead of a year from now, when the barn and the farmhouse are all finished and we can get started,
right?
You could be on that land in 6 weeks.
The turnaround.
Pour the pad, set up your connections,
right.
And bam,
yeah,
you've got a house. And you said what? Takes like a day to set
Yeah,
up?
and if it's bigger, just even what if it took a week? Who cares? A week.
That's a week. A whole week
right.
to get a livable condo.
Right.
Basically.
Move in, and the thing is, you choose your wall colors, you choose whatever.
Wow.
It's ready to go. It's plug and play, like we say.
Wow.
But I don't know. It's very appealing, and the notion that there's competition and it's cost effective. That's the thing. These are cheaper than normal construction. So I don't know. I think this is something to keep an eye on, and maybe there'll be a combination approach. Maybe there's a hybrid approach that we'll get. Because you still need your personal touches. You don't want to just all live in the exact same cookie cutter homes, but modular home design, I think, is here. Is coming.
There are all different movements these days. There are people trying to move off the grid.
Mm-hmm.
There are people trying to move onto the grid. There are people going with the whole tiny home idea.
Yeah.
There are megalithic companies like IKEA that are in the buy it in a box and knock it together yourself and save yourself some money.
Right.
There's literally an option for any taste out there at this point.
I think what appeals to me about all of this, though, Allan, is one thing I think we can all agree on is that when you own something, you take more pride in it. You're going to take better care of it. And if you can become a homeowner for an affordable price versus somebody that's renting or, that's going to improve your life. And it's also just going to improve the community because people just take better care of their own stuff. Generally speaking, so
it is usually the truth. Yes,
you should see my son's room, but that doesn't count. But I don't know. It's something we're going to definitely keep an eye on here on Tool Talk Radio.
It's a fascinating and growing technology.
Well, speaking of fascinating, our buddy Jay Hill is at the door. I'm going to go let him in, Allan, and then we're going to get back and talk about Big M Roofing and Remodeling with our good buddy Jay Hill. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio here at News Talk 98.9 The Roar, Memphis. We'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
What kind of place is this?
News Talk 98.9, The Roar of Memphis.
Turn Jay's mic off. He knew what he was getting into. Anyway, welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass.
How do you know that wasn't me interjecting it?
Who knows? It's some disgruntled or whatever.
You, Max, I know.
You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling hotline at 901-683-0989. And, of course, we invite you to go to Tool Talk Radio on Facebook. Check out the action over there. Scroll down. It's there's other things besides just this week's post. There's all of the show links. Allan, you've been linking shows to Spotify and YouTube and things like that.
Oh yes, they definitely need to go check out our website at tooltalkradio.com. And quick shout out to once you get out on YouTube and Spotify and wherever you get your podcast, we get to find out what country you're in.
Right.
So once again, a huge shout out to all of our New Zealand listeners.
Yeah,
we have a growing number. I mean, a growing number of New Zealand. Of course, our dear buddies down in the Dominican Republic. And, I just got to throw that extra shout out to Romania.
Well, I'm waiting to hear from the Romanian
That's where my
listeners.
son is stationed in the U.S. Army right now, who is listening this morning. I was
Awesome.
So there's our answer.
connection.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I told him I can't replace a shingle out there for nothing. I mean, I'm going to have to charge a trip charge.
Well, that voice you're hearing is our good buddy Jay Hill with Big M Roofing and Remodeling. And Jay, hey, I just want to mention something. All of us next week are going to be at the Home Show of the Mid-South over at the Agri Center. It's an annual event. You've been there forever. Your corner, your booth is always the party booth, I would say. It's always busy over there.
Well, we try to stay busy out there. I tell you, that show has been great for us, and I think a lot of it's what you just said. We've been there consistently over the last, 8 years now.
Yeah.
And we've moved up in spots, and now we've got the premium location there, and
Corner
it's
booth,
great.
yep.
It's fun. We just engage people and get to know them. It's a good time.
It's a great show, folks. I would say if you've got any, I think what it would really appeal to is young couples. If you just bought that first home, go in there, get all sorts of great ideas to get your home fixed up. And let's see, February 10th through 12th. It's it's affordable. Bring your kids. The one thing I like is you get a bunch of free stuff. You get a lot of free swag. You give away some free swag, right?
Absolutely. Flashlights, tire gauges, anything that'll take, Joe.
You chum the waters. Is that what you say?
We do. We chum them.
But Jay, that's how we met you years ago. And one thing that we were highlighting this last week. I had a conversation with Jay, and we're talking about. I'm kind of calling this Jay's sort of handling the armor plating of your home from top to bottom. The takes care of the roofing situations, windows, gutters, siding, anything that basically keeps. We always talk about water as the enemy. Well, Jay keeps every ounce of that out. You could say. Jay.
I don't
know if Jay likes that description.
Yeah,
but
Jay knows I hate to compliment him, but I got to tell you, the gutters you put on my house, awesome.
Oh yeah,
thank you.
Totally. Man. Especially this is the first big ice storm.
Yeah.
Since I've had your roof, and I got to tell you, it was nice.
Oh
Good.
yeah,
It was nice. Walk out there and just kind of go, oh look, everything's working like it's supposed to.
yeah.
That's what you want. That's exactly what you want.
Well, what have you been up to, my friend? Because it's hard to get you in the studios. You're always working.
Well,
That's
you
what
and I
I'm
both
telling you,
keep him
ladies.
busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a lot going on. I mean, just growing. Got a new look in the business that you just mentioned. Really concentrating on being an exterior specialist. So it all started in roofs, of course, but now we do windows, we do gutters, we do siding, we do fences, we do wood replacement and painting, and those are our staples. Now, don't misunderstand that. If you've got an interior project, we'll look at it. We're not really your bathroom remodeler. We're not your kitchen remodeler. That's really a specialty trade.
Right.
And it's a different skill set that my brain cannot take on. And that's really because of all the other work that we're doing.
Right.
It's just hard to do it all at the size of our company, which is growing, by the way, because of this show. I'm telling you. I want to put a special shout out this morning. First of all, to my mom, Marion Hill, who's listening this morning.
Oh.
And
Hey, Marion.
Yeah,
Hi, Mom.
And then my son that I just told you, who is in Romania.
That's awesome.
Serving our country in the U.S. Army and absolutely ready to come home. He's been over there a little over a year now, and I think he's got an opportunity to come home March or April.
Oh, nice.
And he could not be any more excited to get some Elwoods or something like that, as you can imagine. And another big shout out, as I'm talking about the show being a direct result of some things for us. Shout out to Danny Brubaker this morning, who's in Brighton, Tennessee. Danny is a loyal, he says, and I believe it, listener of the show. And he called me yesterday and said, hey, look, this is who I am. And listen, we need a roof out in Brighton. Listen to the show, and I think you're the guy.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, we hit it off, and his mom actually needs a roof. They've already got the insurance approval, and we're ready to go. We're meeting on Monday and getting him started. So we appreciate that. So not quite Romania or Australia, New Zealand, but it's headed that way.
Yeah,
it's headed that way. So
You don't necessarily service the Romanian consumer, do you?
The trip charges so much.
Okay.
I mean,
hey, big shout. Thanks, Danny. Thanks for listening, and
Yeah,
thanks for
Danny.
But
calling Jay.
isn't that kind of what happens, though? That one person has three other people down the line that's kind of like, hey, if he can do yours, can you take a look at mine?
Yeah.
Because, that happened in here.
Right.
Yeah, and I'd say this about that, Allan, because that's a great point. You can spend, as a business owner, you could spend your money any way you wanted to generate leads, if you will. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to tell you, the only thing that I invest in is this show, and I mean that. And these guys have not prompted me to say that. I'm telling you, this show has brought me more business between y'all's referrals, the people and the people calling in from the show, that if I do a good job, the Nextdoor app, signs in the yard, good reputation in this show, it's all I can keep up with.
There you go. Well, that let's keep that in mind, all you business owners, because we don't play games around here. And I know Larry Brown feels the same way. So
It's been good, man. It really has, and you can see it grow.
That's awesome.
It used to be a call every now and then when we made the switch, for the new format here, and then now about once a week, somebody out of the blue, and I'm talking about somebody that we connect with and do business with. So whatever y'all are saying when I'm not here is obviously taken.
Well,
they trust me before we get going.
And speaking of communication related to Jay, Jay, we actually have somebody on the text line. Our loyal 732, I believe. We call him 732 because they haven't given us the name. So they said, does Jay know the voltage comparison between traditional solar panels and the new solar shingles?
Well, that's a heck of a question, and the answer is no, I do not. And I will have to get educated, of course, as I think I mentioned on the show maybe 6 months or so ago. GAF is in the stages of the real first solar shingle that is coming out. I'm going to have to get up to speed with that, but I do not know the answer to that. It would be an electrician's answer for sure, but we can find out for them. Tell them we'll let them know before the end of the show. Okay, Max?
Sounds good.
Listener 732. So here's what here's what we need to come up with for the listener 732, Alan. I'm sitting here looking at my phone numbers here. And so the number 7 has PQRS3. You know, we need to assign a code name to this 732 because it could be code name REC, REC, code name P. P is kind of a weak name. So 732, we're gonna just.
I think 732 works. It's kind of like tagging the cougar.
Actually, 732 is cool. It reminds me of that show
cool.
Get Smart.
There you go.
99.
We have Agent 732
86,
working the bushes for us.
All right, 732. Thanks for weighing in on that. But we digress. But Jay, I'm intrigued by your real push for the exterior protection of the home, I should say. But especially the way it all, one thing, because you talk about roofing systems, and I feel like there's a system that goes with the entire exterior of your home, right? I mean, gutters, that's a system, right? I mean,
it is. And I tell you what we're seeing a lot of right now is the folks that have homes that are 20, 25 years old, for instance, and maybe even 30. We just went through this transition down in Harbor Town where these homes were built with masonite boards, which, as everybody knows, is sawdust and glue.
Yeah.
And
don't trigger me, Jay.
They lasted longer than I thought they would.
Right.
And so we get to that point where we get that call all the time. Look, we've got these rotten boards. Well, what the homeowner can see and what's actually rotten or needs to be replaced are distinctly two different things just about every time. So, there's two ways to remedy that. So we're doing a lot of that right now where we're either replacing the masonite board with hardy board, which, of course, is a cement backboard.
Oh, yes.
Which will last a long time. Or we're actually covering with vinyl siding, which is a game changer because siding, what I've started to love about it is not only do you not have to replace all the wood necessarily, there's some that you will, but you'll never have to paint again and you'll never have to replace that wood again.
And isn't siding technology evolved a lot? We were talking earlier about just the way building technologies change. And the siding today, I have to imagine, is not the siding we saw back in the 60s or something.
No, because pretty much there was aluminum back then. That's pretty much what you had. And although in some ways you might think, well, vinyl, that's kind of plasticky. I don't know. Vinyl is actually a real game changer because they can perfect the color, the paint color into the actual siding itself. And aluminum wasn't good at that. You'd have to paint aluminum just like you'd have to paint regular wood boards.
Right. So, but windows. I need some. I might have to have you come by my house, Jay. Our windows are terrible. Our windows were.
When are you available?
Yeah, we need to get you over there because. But windows are a game that to me is a big improvement to your home, and I think it's easy for people to overlook that. But I bet you if you had a little meter, Alan, one of your little sensor things, and you looked at how much air you're losing, or just the draft ratio or something, I bet. But Windows got to be, and their technology keeps evolving.
And that's what y'all been talking about, earlier in the show, the technology and what you can do today that you can't, that you couldn't back in the day. And windows are one of those game changers. Everybody used to think, well, we need a good, solid name brand wood window. No, you don't. The windows today, especially vinyl windows, you're talking about some bang for your buck. And these all come with lifetime warranties, with lifetime glass breakage. If you throw a rock with your lawnmower, the company comes out and replaces that for as long as you live in the home.
Wow.
I mean, you can't beat that. And they're half the money of a wood window. And they're double hung. They're double sashed. I mean, you just can't beat them. The technology, the best way I can equate it is the difference in a horse and an automobile. Things have changed that much in 50 years. Would you want a car today with airbags and anti-lock brakes, or you want the old one?
Right.
I mean, it's that big.
Yeah. And I mean, they tip out. You can clean them. They're now, Jay, are storm windows obsolete when it comes to these things?
Gone.
Yeah.
And we run a lot. I say senior now, being 62 now, so I put myself in this class. Although I don't agree.
You don't act like one.
Well, I've heard I act more like an 18, 19-year-old.
Yeah.
I understand. But a lot of folks, especially some of our seniors, there's still the storm window. You know, I get calls all the time. Listen, we don't need windows, but we've got 3 of our storm windows that are broke. Like, yeah, but really you need windows.
Right.
It doesn't make the home look good at all to start with, if you ask me. There was a day and a time where that was what was available, and that was the best train
Well, that
smoking.
was the tech of the time.
Yeah,
Right.
you can fly now, or you could take the Greyhound. I mean, there's a difference
Right.
in what you can get today. So, not an advocate for storm windows. And if you ever have to paint a home with storm windows, you'll wish you didn't have them.
Oh, I know. I remember those days, and especially when they're painted shut or the.
That's just part of it. You got to get them open, then you got to figure out how to get the windows painted. It's a bear.
Yeah. No. But Jay, we can't fail to mention roofing. You know, I mean, that's how we met you. And let's put our cards on the table. Allan, you've got a J Hill Big M roof. I've got a new roof. Our buddy Brandon Olmstead, and it was all done through our homeowners insurance, which was great, man. It was you solved one of the reasons I love J Hill is because he solved a problem that was looming over my head for 15 years, and
Quite literally.
and I was dreading that whole process, and then Jay came along and took care of it. And it's such a pleasure whenever it rains now, Jay. Like I said, I stand there at the window with my hands on my hips and say, "Do your worst." And,
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned Brandon Olmstead because he too has sent me a customer. That's 2 this week, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Who lives over close to where I live actually, and I'll have his proposal for him Monday or Tuesday. I just met with him on Thursday, I think it was, during the storm. But yeah, thanks, Brandon. Appreciate it. I know you're listening for sure.
yeah.
Well, and I'd also like to mention that my roof was storm damage.
Yes.
Just the part of town where I live, down by Olive Branch, got hit with a massive thunderstorm, and we still had tree limbs down, siding ripped off of other houses. And so when Jay came out to look, I'm just pointing all around the neighborhood going, and they lost all the siding off that part of their house and that roof over there and this tree over here.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that.
So we just had a massive ice storm.
That's where I was going.
And the thing I want to point out about an ice storm is whatever direction that wind is blowing, that water, and everyone's like, no, there's no water, it's snow. It's water. That snow and that ice is pushing up underneath those shingles, and that's when water starts looking for a way in.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And speaking of this last storm, we are getting calls, and I just remind the listeners, too, if you had a big branch on that tree actually fall and hit your roof and think that it's okay, maybe so, maybe not. You need to get that inspected to make sure. It doesn't take much damage at all from a tree falling to do damage to the roof itself. But your insurance companies are generally really good about replacing roofs when that happens. So if that happens, 901-484-5645. Love to come out and take a look at it for you.
Jay, you just reminded me something. If let's suppose that happened. Let's suppose we just had the ice storm. Should they? I feel like they should take pictures and everything before they pull the limb off.
Absolutely.
Right?
Anytime that you're managing your own claim, that's exactly what an insurance company will tell you to do when you call it in, whether you're calling your agent or actually calling straight into claims. They'll ask you to mitigate as best you can, but to take photos to substantiate what happened. Because you're going to have to, in some ways, be able to show that damage that happened on that date at that time, and it didn't happen 10 years ago when your satellite dish, fell off and hit something. Hit your car.
Now, speaking of that, we our cars and parts of our roof, I've seen, there's literally a sheet of ice there, and I know it's going to start melting today, right? But you may not, somebody that had roof damage, they may not know about it till the next time we get a good rain, right?
That's right. Well, one of my good customers actually called. All my customers are good. I don't know why I said that. One of my good customers called me on Thursday and said, "Hey, listen, we had a big branch hit our roof. I think we're okay. We've gotten the limb off. Just come take a look at it. So that's where you start.
Okay.
And then you'll know.
Yeah. Yep. So, give the information again, though, Jay. You didn't give your website, but
Yeah, well, it's Big M Roofing and Remodeling.com. You have to spell the and out, and I know that's long, but that's it. I thought .com was better than .net. I don't know why.
I think so.
So Big M Roofing and Remodeling.com, or you can call us at 901-484-5645, which is actually my direct number too. So, I mean, I always take your phone call. If not, I'm back with you within the hour for sure, unless I'm tied up in some type of meeting with a customer. But go to our website. I mean, we've got so much there for you. I mean, we've got financing available. We've got just updated all our credentials for this year, have pictures of work that we have done all over the Mid-South. And I would want to say, too, a special shout-out to the Arkansas listeners. We're now licensed in Arkansas, doing a good bit of business up there, and that keeps growing. I can't tell you how many people tell us they hear about us from the show in Blytheville, Arkansas.
Oh, we got buddies in Arkansas. Yeah. Shout out to Mr. Robert.
Oh, yes. We got a bunch of them.
Hey, Jay, the other thing is you mentioned it, but let's lean into this a little bit because let's suppose maybe you don't qualify for a homeowner's claim or something, but you're suddenly faced with roof replacement, and maybe you weren't budgeting for that. Well, you've got relationships with lenders that
we do.
Somebody's going to take you're going to qualify for some. So right?
Exactly right. You all you need is a 510 Beacon score. So if you've been through some hard times, rocky roads from COVID or something like that, there's still something available for you. We use a company that's actually yoked with 28 of the nation's largest lenders, and what it does is, once in the approval application is only 90 seconds long, we literally know in 90 seconds which of, and sometimes it's multiples of these 28 lenders would love to do business with you. It's a great product and a nice feature on a website that's just done very well for us and for our customers.
Just out of curiosity, you just made me think of something because I seem to remember credit applications taking like days or weeks. Isn't that? I mean, now, like I said, you pull it up on your phone. In 2 minutes, you get qualified, right? But what was it like in the old days?
Yeah, well, you know, I'm an old car veteran, and I'm going to tell you what, it used to be a bear. It was really, instead of of course, we didn't call it a credit application, we called it a customer statement, which really became customer lying statement because really that's all that happens there. There are laws that prevent us from doing this any other way. But you're going to put down what you want to in an application, but all of that's actually verifiable from that 90-second thing that you do now. So just what I'm saying is this: all that stuff you're putting down on a real application, if it's a paper application, it just makes you feel good. It doesn't have a whole lot of bearing on what your lender's going to do because they're looking for a third party, one of our credit reporting agencies, and verification of income. Those are the only things that matter.
It's just interesting how streamlined everything's become. So, but Jay, we love the roofing systems and discuss that because, like we said, roof technology, everything has just evolved, and the technology, the fact that you can offer lifetime transferable warranties that you know, I just don't remember that in the old days. There
wasn't anything like that.
Right.
And again, you can't do that if you're just replacing shingles. The only way that you can do that, of course, everybody knows, and I always want to give a plug to the manufacturer that I represent solely, which is GAF. Now, a lot of guys in the business like me represent a lot of different manufacturers. I found it better to stay with the highest rated, the guys that I believe support not only me but our customers the best. And they've got this lifetime warranty that is, again, transferable and non-prorated. So to our listeners, because I had to be taught what non-prorated meant, I was confused.
Yeah, remind me.
That means the value of the warranty never goes down; it always goes up as the cost of goods and services go up.
That's kind of a big deal.
It's a huge deal because a $10,000 roof now is $30,000 30 years from now. But in order to do that, that's the real point here. You can't replace shingles, as I said. What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to pull that roof off. Let's get down to that substrate, make sure that we've got a good deck, replace what wood needs to be replaced, re-nail all the existing decking that is still good, And then we're going to use some components or some accessories that GF knows over the long haul is going to make this roof last long enough where they have very, very, very few warranty claims, okay? And that happens from time to time. I'm involved in them. But it doesn't happen very often, and it really doesn't. The reason it doesn't is because of what we're putting on the roof. We're going to use a good 60-pound synthetic felt instead of the old 15-pound paper felt. We're going to use a extremely tough and durable leak barrier in all of your valleys and all your penetrations. Penetrations meaning any pipes that are coming out the top of the roof. Those are places that are obviously susceptible to leaking. And we're going to use a real starter strip instead of turning that 3-tab shingle upside down like Chuck in a truck and Dan in a van does. And they're out there. And then the last component, of course, is we're going to put the ridge fence in, which is always a hit when we talk about it on this show.
Oh, yeah.
A real game.
Love ridge
hey,
fence.
man, it's like having intermittent wipers before you have them.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So what ridge vents do, again, the biggest reasons, this is a big factor, the big reason that roofs wear out prematurely is because most of the attics just do not have a proper ventilation. So we actually open up the entire ridge of your home, and sometimes that's multiple ridges, and it lets 25 to 30 degrees of heat out in the summertime, and now the shingles aren't baking from the inside and the outside. Real game changer. Then GF will give you that Systems Plus lifetime non-prorated transferable warranty.
And, Jay, quick, can you give your phone number?
901-4845. 901-484-5645. That's 901-484-5645.
All right, this is hour 1 of Tool Talk Radio is in the can. Let's see if we can get Jay to stick around for hour 2. Either way, we'll be here, and we hope you will be too.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
And welcome to hour 2 of Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry, and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And if you wanted to talk to Jay, you missed your chance. He's in and out like a flash. The guy, we tried to get him to stick around for hour 2, Allan, but he duty calls. He's off to some project. We couldn't get him to stick around, but either way, he's a great guy to get in touch with. And I should just say, because we got up to the end of the hour and it was tough to give out his information. Let's do it one more time. If you need to get in touch with Big M Roofing and Remodeling for any reason, you can call Jay directly at 901-484-5645 or go to bigmroofingandremodeling.com. And we strongly encourage you to go to the, if you want to meet Jay in person and see what we're talking about, go to the home show of the Mid-South next week at the Agri Center. It's happening February 10th through 12th. We'll be there broadcasting live, Allan. It's one of our first, it is our first live remote of the year. Look for more of those, but this is the one that always kicks it off. We'll be there February 11th doing Tool Talk Radio, and we hope we'll be sticking around after the show's over, too. So we would love to say hello. I think Allan's going to be bringing some Tool Talk Radio swag. We'll probably have some Brown Refrigeration swag and probably some Big M Roofing swag.
Probably food.
Well, that's a given. Allan's you're not serving food, though, Allan.
No,
the health department wouldn't go for that.
No.
Are you going to experiment with the zebra since this week was International Zebra Day?
Well, I'm thinking I'm going to experiment with some funnel cake.
Yeah,
at the funnel cake
Allan
booth.
samples the food.
no
He
fun
doesn't
in
eat it.
that.
So, we've got stuff to get to, and also we want to remind you, go to Tool Talk Radio on Facebook and check out what's going on over there. In a minute, Allan, because we failed to get to it last week, we're going to get to our must-have item of the week. But caller 732 texted in with a question, and during the break we got the answer, right? So tell people what the question was.
We
Allan,
do. The question is there a difference between what a solar roof can generate versus solar tiles versus solar panels?
Okay.
And the answer is, well, it just really depends on the square footage of solar.
Okay.
As a general rule, almost any of the installations, whether it is a shingle, a tile, or a panel, they generate between about 13 to 60 watts of power.
Yeah.
So it's really down to surface area. And the other thing that's going to be a big thing is there's a lot of new tech, as Jay was mentioning with GAF and several of the others. There's a lot of new tech. And the biggest thing is the house battery that this will now tie into. So, yes, it is growing. So, yep. So your answer is actually it's just the matter of square footage.
Okay, there you go. Hopefully that takes care of the question. Caller 732, or I should say texter 732.
Yes.
Anyway, very
Secret
good, Alan.
Agent 732.
Yeah, Agent 732. So, all right, Alan, we didn't get to this last week, so let's do it. Let's do it now.
All righty.
Our must-have item of the week, I actually don't have it in the studio with me, but it is on our Facebook page. But tell people what it is, Alan. This is one, I got to be honest, I don't have this tool, but I'm going to get one. So it's the, you remember what's up there? The 8-in-1 plumbing tool.
I was about to say, it's
Well, when
going to
you
be
don't stare at me blankly, I'm like...
So you bring in a Sawzall and you bring in a drill, but you don't bring in this.
It wasn't dangerous
this was
enough,
well, I was actually picturing trying to how to describe it. Basically, it is just a shaft with a slit down the side and a couple of fittings.
Right.
And if you see this thing hanging on the shelf, you're going to have that, okay, I have no idea what this is moment.
Right.
It is actually designed to slip over the line, slide up underneath your sink, and grip the fitting that you're trying to tighten or loosen.
Right.
This is one of those ideas. Somebody stayed up late one night drinking way too much coffee and eating way too much pizza and came up with this. It is amazing.
No, this was somebody that was laying under their kitchen sink and swearing, and because their pipe wrench and their socket wrench couldn't get up there to tighten. That is, we have our segment called Design Flaws, and one of the things, if you're trying to install a faucet in the back of a sink, inside a cabinet, or take one off, sometimes that stuff's rusted on. You have no room to turn the wrench or anything.
Right.
And this came along. This is perfect. This is great. So it's sort of, like you said, it almost looks like I don't know what it looks like. That's the problem. It doesn't look like a wrench.
No, it does not. So. But the idea behind it is absolute genius. Again, there's a slit in it. You slip it up over the line. You slide it up in behind it, and now you can just get some torque on it and crank that thing around and either loosen or tighten the fittings that you're trying to fit.
And I guess what's the beauty of it is one thing we've shouted from the mountaintops is when it comes to water lines, you have to be, you don't just torque it down as hard as you can. You have to use finesse. And this tool strikes me as it kind of prevents you from just over tightening it because there's only so much grip you can get on it. So,
that's true. You're going for the proper pressure, not the most pressure when you're doing plumbing.
Right. So, and this thing I gotta imagine is not that expensive. It looks.
They were under $10.
Right, and it's got 8 different attachments.
Right, it has all different fittings for different size sinks. So, as a person who a couple of weeks ago was doing sink after sink after sink. When I saw this, it was like, ooh, that's a great idea.
Where have you been all my life?
Yeah, it's kind of like, wow, it's about time you showed up.
And we talk about it. There we have fire safety for the home. Every member of the family should know where the fire extinguisher is, and every member of the family should know where how to turn the water off. They should know water mitigation because water can do just as much damage to your home as a fire. Honestly,
water probably does more.
It probably does, honestly. In fact, when there's a fire, a lot of times the damage comes from what it took to put the fire out,
right? More
than So this is a great tool along in that effort. So the 8-in-1. I don't know what it's called. The 8-in-1.
It was just called an 8-in-1 of adjustable plumbing wrench.
Yeah. If you look in the tool aisle in the plumbing section and you see something that looks like a snake with its head cut off, I guess that's kind of what it is. So, but anyway, hats off. That's a great one, and I'm definitely picking one of those up.
Oh yeah.
So, all right, Allan. In a minute, we're going to get to our great moments in building history. Before that, though, one of the people we want to showcase. Jay said it himself. He talks about the dynamic action that comes from being involved with Tool Talk Radio. I mean, he gets customer after customer. It's but also somebody who has been with us since day one. Really,
absolutely.
The history of Tool Talk Radio. This man precedes that.
Yeah, we are pretty much his fault.
The bedrock of the show, I would say, is our good buddy Larry Brown with Brown Refrigeration. And there's a reason he's been with us for so long, because we have a good partnership. But we appreciate the fact that this is Brown Refrigeration is a rock solid business with a solid business culture. I just dealt with their technician 2 days ago, Jonathan, who I was mistakenly calling Casey. I didn't have my glasses on, and his last name is K whatever. Sorry, Jonathan.
Yeah, love Jonathan.
But these guys, they had to follow up on a problem at my customer's house that because of somebody else's somebody 15 years ago installed a unit with that improperly, causing all sorts of problems. Man, this is not a HVAC is not for the faint of heart, and it's not for, I hate to keep saying Chuck in his truck, but it is somebody, you have to be properly trained. It's a very dynamic business.
It is a very complex tool that makes life livable.
It is a precision instrument, and so you need somebody that for one thing, they continually evolve. Brown Refrigeration is always at the cutting edge of the latest technology. Among that is the way clean air technology has evolved. Not only are these HVAC systems so much more efficient, but the clean air that we always talk about breathing. Eating and breathing cleanly, and what a difference it makes when you have clean air in your home. And of course, the Remy Halo system that they install, it basically it not only pumps out air that's clean, it's air that's actually cleaning all the surfaces that it hits, which is sort of mind-boggling.
Yeah,
I mean,
welcome to those positive ions.
Exactly, positive ions, and also your HVAC system needs regular tune-ups. And it's great to be involved with a company like Brown Refrigeration, because that's, it's a relationship. You're not just calling these guys and say, I'll see you in 30 years. No, you're probably going to want to stay in touch with them at least once a year. I would say a once-a-year tune-up, which is the price is almost negligible.
Right.
But they can troubleshoot. They can see if maybe your unit is due for something. And the other thing about these tune-ups that's useful is they might maybe they come in for a tune-up. Maybe you have an older unit and they say, you know what? I would say in 3 to 5 years, you're going to want to start budgeting for a new system. So that you can prepare ahead, and that's a big deal. You don't want to wait till the thing just dies.
Well, yeah, because keep in mind the refrigerant technology. Not only has it changed, the laws have changed.
Exactly.
And you can't even get the old refrigerant that your unit may still be running if you've got a much older unit.
Right.
So it might be a good time to start, a relationship there and go, let's keep this one going as long as we can. But when the time comes, we're ready to roll over to a new unit.
Yeah, and Allan used an important word, relationship. And that's what you have with Brown Refrigeration. You have a relationship with a rock-solid company. They're always on the cutting edge of technology, and they answer their phones.
Yes, they do.
So give them a call. You can't do better than to call the good people at Brown Refrigeration. You can get in touch with them directly at 901-362-1881, or go to their very easy to remember website, brownref.com. And I dare say, if you show up at the home show of the Mid-South at the Agri Center next week, you'll probably meet Larry Brown. He'll be stopping in, and if we're lucky, the elusive Mrs. Brown will be there as well. So anyway, good stuff, Allan. But now it is time for the big moment.
And now, great moments in building history.
Allan, we cover every time period. We may discuss things that were built 5,000 years ago. We may discuss things that were built, this year. But we don't want to neglect our own hometown, and we have sort of a really unique construction in the sense of, I would say, based on the personality of this structure, and that is the Peabody Hotel. And there's an interesting history with the Peabody. And Allan, you were right in the thick of things. And just the reason I was disappointed that Jay couldn't stick around, Jay worked in the Peabody Hotel, so he probably had some good stories for us. He said he met a lot of celebrities. But let's talk about the Peabody. And Of course, we should say Peabody 2.0, right?
It's kind of the Peabodys.
Yeah.
Well, my personal involvement was, my father worked for Holiday Inns, and they were building the Rivermont downtown, and the Peabody we know today was more or less reborn around 75, 76.
Okay.
But if you want to go back, you want to go way back, set the machine.
Yeah.
Let's go back to about 1869.
That's what I'm seeing.
67. 1869 is when the original Peabody Hotel opened at the corner of Main and Monroe.
Can I just say something, Alan,
Dive
real
in.
quick? Because I know, you, as you said, we have listeners that aren't from Memphis. But if you can picture downtown Memphis, folks, of course, we're on the river. This particular part of the river is pretty scenic. That's where we've developed Mud Island, and then there's the bridges, and there's a turn. But if you go inland, 5 or 6 blocks, that's when you hit this neighborhood. Now,
Right.
Main and Monroe is only about 2 blocks from the river, and I have to believe when the Peabody was built, it must have had a river view, right? Because it's
yes.
there wasn't much in the way of that. So
There was very little in the way
right after the Civil War, which they lost.
Well,
this
is this is just that time, and we had a lovely gentleman who looked at Memphis and went, what we really need is a centerpiece, and this was Colonel Robert C. Brinkley, and he really envisioned, and he was just how do you phrase this? The guy wanted a ballroom, he wanted a saloon, he wanted a big impressive lobby. I mean, he had some really grand
center.
ideas.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
This is where you go to propose to your fiance. This is where this is where you go for date night. This is where you go for
This is where you go to close a deal
there
with
you go.
buying a new farm, or this is
Right.
where, this was going to be that centerpiece.
Right.
And the original Peabody was 75 rooms and was pretty much the pinnacle of 1869 technology.
Right.
And the hotel had a pretty good run.
Yeah.
It made it all the way until the 20s.
Which, so a little under 50 years there. So, actually, is my math right? Actually, it's over 50 years. Okay,
for a simple wood frame building downtown in a swamp.
75, on a bluff,
Yeah.
and maybe we don't know what the geology.
Well,
whatever, but
we do know what the geology was like back then, because
Okay.
Memphis was a gargantuan swamp.
Yeah.
We were very wet.
Yeah.
So, for a big building of that particular construction to survive as long as it did
Yeah.
is just amazing. Memphis was actually one of the first cities basically in the United States to get sewers,
Right. Yeah.
because we had a lot of water. We had a lot of water to deal with. So this is, just a testament to where he chose to build, how he chose to build it, and the fact that he really succeeded.
Well, and the fact that you had to build a second hotel much big. Now, the first one, as you said, had 75 rooms. And where are we at with the new PIB? Like 400? I probably should have looked at it.
465 rooms, if I remember correctly.
Almost 500. So the new Peabody that most people know and love today. What, Alan, you had, I was, when we were doing our show prep, I was saying, okay, when you walk in, it's very striking. The interior space, especially the lobby, and of course, we're going to get to the fountain, which is very famous. But the entire feel, I would say, whoever the architect were, whoever the designer was, boy, it really creates a unique feel. And you said this is sort of this is Italian Renaissance in terms of the style.
The one built in 26 is full Italian Renaissance.
Okay.
Well, let's go back to the name. Let's get the name and move it forward, because you're going to recognize a lot of names in here.
Oh yeah.
You ready? So he was intending to name it after himself. It was going to be the Brinkley, and he was good friends with a famous financier named George Peabody.
Was he a financier or a philanthropist?
Well, he was a financier first.
Okay.
And grew into being a philanthropist. And when we talk about being a philanthropist, how about the Johns Hopkins University?
Well, it's funny,
Yeah.
it's funny, Alan, because when I saw a picture of George Peabody, he looked like a guy you'd want to go have a beer with. I don't know. He just looked like a jolly kind of guy. I don't know. I hope he is. I hope he wasn't a jerk. But
he is recognized as the father of modern philanthropy.
Okay.
So, he made his money. He started out, as the story goes, he started out in a poor family in Massachusetts and succeeded. He started out in the dry goods business.
Right.
And then moved on up later into banking and that kind of stuff. And then later in life, he got into, I think we need a university. I think we need a library. And Mr. Peabody had just passed away, so he named the hotel the Peabody.
You know what I find interesting about the Peabody as well, Allan, is because you walk in and there's I don't know, 5 or 6. There's a decent number of entrances. Let's put it that way. And we're not talking necessarily about the newer part today. We're talking more about the center. The main atrium or whatever you want to call it. However, along the outside, there are different shops. And I feel like, in a sense, it's sort of a modular thinking. Like, okay, because I'm sure the shops that are there today are different than the ones that were there when they built it. But they built it with change in mind. Like maybe we'll have a clothing shop, and maybe in a few years it'll be who knows? It could be a toy store. It could be whatever. But that's what I think keeps it fresh. But then you go into the main area in the center with the piano and with the fountain and everything, and there's sort of a unifying. I will say this, in terms of ambiance, there's fewer places more charming or more just pleasant to be in than the lobby of the Peabody Hotel. And I guess a lot of people around the world felt the same way.
They did. Right after he opened it, Brinkley gave the hotel, how's this for a wedding gift?
Yeah.
Gave the hotel to his daughter, Anna Overton Brinkley.
Overton.
There's another Overton. And
I wonder
she
if Memphians
married,
know that name.
Well, see, you and I have a connection to the next one here.
Yeah.
Robert B. Snowden is who she married.
Never heard of those names.
Never heard of the Snowden house or the Snowden castle or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, of the original Peabody's was originally brought down to make room for, are you ready for another giant?
Okay.
Lowenstein's, the dry goods department store.
Right.
So what a great, interesting changeover, because the owners at that time were envisioning the true grandeur of the modern Peabody. So they went, yeah, you can have that one. Over here in 1925, we're going to open up the big one.
What I find interesting about the Peabody Hotel is if you see it from outside, it's like, okay, well, it's a building. It's not very striking, to be honest. It looks functional, but all the personality is on the inside.
Exactly.
And so that's an interesting choice. They put their efforts in, because the rooms, the hallway, as you said, even the doors are slightly shorter when you go into the hotel rooms. That seems to be by choice, right?
And they have,
maybe it creates
well, they also have additional rooms in the Peabody that have 9-foot ceilings and 8-foot doors, so that basketball players can stay there comfortably.
Well, it has evolved, and as we said, we've been to many events. I know growing up, I always my kids grew up basically going to the Peabody. I used to take them there and get them Shirley Temples, and we'd hang out and listen to the piano, and just a great place.
The Ducks would come down, and
Well, we need to touch on the Ducks when we come back,
We will.
the Ducks are sort of the institution, but really it's just a great example of a great space and creating a space with a lot of personality. And, you could do worse than to study that for your own home.
Yes.
All right, we'll continue the conversation when we come back. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio here at News Talk 98.9 The Roar, Memphis. We'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Was that toilet always next to the refrigerator?
Nah. You ever try lugging a toilet up a flight of stairs?
News Talk 98.9 The Roar of Memphis.
I don't eat at that place, Allan. Anyway, welcome back. Welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can get in touch with us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling hotline at 901-683-0989. You can call or text as some people like to do. I feel like people like texting these days. It's don't text and drive, folks. But Allan, we got a lot to get to. Once again, why do I over tease on things? So we may get to everything.
Interesting topics.
I just want to say this. So because we talked about this is great moments in building history, and today we're talking about the Peabody Hotel, which is a great local icon here. We're not necessarily the construction of it's not what I would call a marvel. It is what the marvel and the achievement of the Peabody Hotel is how they created an ambiance that's really almost second to none in this city. And it's just thinking about the experience of the people walking through, creating great lighting, creating great elevations, like when you're on that balcony. And it's really just a good example of thinking about the personality of your space and everything. That's kind of where I was going with all of this. So
the utter and complete attention to every detail, no matter how small.
Right, absolutely. Now, Max, you wanted to weigh in because the first thing anybody notices when you go to the Peabody and you go in that grand lobby there, or what is it called? Is it the grand lobby?
It's the lobby, the grand lobby. Yes.
Well, Max, there's something very different in there.
It's duck time.
There we go. So duck sound effects, Max? I thought you'd surely
okay. No.
But the ducks, obviously, that's one of the most unique things about it, floating around in the fountain there. So
they are.
Okay.
1933.
Exactly. And let's, as Allan say, let's set the Wayback Machine, and let's discuss the general manager at the time of the Peabody by the name of Frank Shutt. You have to be careful how you say that name.
Wow.
Anyways, he had just returned from a weekend hunting trip in Arkansas, and he and his friends thought it'd be wildly amusing to have 3 of their live English call ducks let them loose in the hotel fountain. And you know what? People like that idea, and to this day, 5 mallard ducks, which include 1 drake and 4 hens, have played in the fountain every day since. So from 11 a.m. to 5, you'll see the ducks.
And while it goes beyond that, Max, it's like
it goes beyond that. There's an honorary title that exists only here in Memphis, and that is the Duck Master.
There was who was the first Duck Master?
The first Duck Master occurred in 1940. He was a bellman by the name of Edward Pembroke, who also worked in the circus, so he was perfect for this first position because you need to train the ducks to walk and move. But what's cool about Pembroke is he assumed the position until 1991.
Yes.
Wait a minute. What's the math on that? I thought it was, so that's
51 years.
It's close to, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Holy smoke. So, yeah, because, but
Talk about
Allan,
a great job.
people may, we learned we did a little bit of a deep dive and I learned this. I didn't know this. I'm like, okay, well, I guess you're a duck and then you're there for 5 or 6 years and then you retire, but there's a pretty, they rotate them in, right? So,
yes.
What's the duck rotation schedule?
Well, the duck rotation schedule is around 3 to 6 months. So they, animals get bored too.
Sure.
So they have their little flock of ducks, and the duck master, they imprint with him.
Right.
So he leads the charge, and the ducks honestly get out of their little pool in their living area upstairs, walk to the elevator with him, get on the elevator with him, come down, the door opens, they know to walk down their carpet.
The red carpet.
Their little red carpet, and they hop in their little pond. And I actually had the pleasure of meeting the duck master back in the late 80s.
Right.
When the family farm kind of got involved.
Right.
And I'm happy to say 1 or 2 mallards of mine, I believe, went to the Peabody in Orlando.
Okay. I didn't know there was a Peabody in Orlando.
Yeah,
so.
there was at that time.
I thought I'd mention the fact that not only does a duck master exist, but there's also been the title of honorary duck master to certain celebrities, including Oprah Winfrey, Paula Deen, Joan Collins, Molly Ringwald, and Kevin Bacon, to name a few.
Wait a minute.
And Peter Frampton.
So when you're visiting, because let's face it, every celebrity that's ever they usually stay at the Peabody. So I guess you get to put on the jacket and temporary. Your job for the day is to march the ducks up. And
good question. I don't know what the perks are of the honorary duck master.
Hey, well, Al, we failed to mention somebody very important. We need to mention the Bells family too, because back in the 70s, the Peabody was on the chopping block. Financially, I guess it was in trouble, and it was falling into disrepair, let's say. And the Bells family came along and really saved the day and just really made it.
Well, the Alsonet Hotel Group bought it in '53.
Okay.
Of course, the '60s was a drastic change in taste, and Memphis downtown didn't do so good. And it became a Sheraton.
Mm-hmm.
And the 70s weren't any kinder. And penultimately, the Peabody went bankrupt in '75.
Mm-hmm.
So they were gone. And Isadora Edwin Hanover purchased the hotel from the county for $400,000 and sold it to his son-in-law, Jack Bells.
There we go. Yeah. And
Several years later, and $25 million in renovating. Thank you, Mr. Bells. You've got to have some idea what you did for this city.
Oh yeah.
The grand reopening was in 1981 and has been considered a major catalyst for honestly revitalizing everything about Memphis, because it was just suddenly the Peabody was back.
Well, and
And it was such a great centerpiece.
it's funny just because I'm not from Memphis. I've lived here, 28 years or so, but it feels like the center of downtown to me. Like that's one of the first places I went.
designed
And
to be the center
it's
of
sort of like
downtown.
the blast radius. Then you head over to the Beale Street and all that.
Yes.
But you have to. The Peabody is sort of the crown jewel in the center.
It is more or less the linchpin of it. So sitting in the middle of downtown, they have 1,000+ parking places. They have 7 restaurants, 69 luxury suites, 464 rooms, and over 80,000 square feet of floor space.
Yeah, and their ballrooms are beautiful, and I've been to some events up there.
Stunning.
Really, really great space. If you live if you're anywhere near the Mid-South, or if you're ever coming through Memphis, just make sure you budget time to go check out the Peabody Hotel.
And let's throw it into a DIY, because if you're looking for decorating ideas, if you're looking to snap a few pictures and go, one of these days I would like to.
Yeah. Yep.
This is probably the best example of antiquing, layout, attention to detail, and Italian Renaissance you're going to find anywhere in the U.S.
And one thing I like too is it harkens back to something that we talk about a lot on Tool Talk, which is your home should fit your personality.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a dining room that you're not using, who says it has to be a dining room? That could be an art room. That could be an office. That could be whatever you want. So,
I mean, Joe, you have the squirrels. Why don't you do the tradition of the marching of the squirrels?
well, that's not going to happen. But the Peabody,
The Squirrel Master.
there you go. They said, why can't we have ducks in the fountain? It's our hotel. And they did and became an icon. So think outside the box and just go with your personality. So anyway, I like that one, Allan. It's not just because it's local, but it's a feel good. The Peabody Hotel.
It is, and it does go to show what keeping your mind on your purpose,
right,
really has a lot to do with it. If you want your kitchen to be the centerpiece of the house, pay attention, put the details in, put the work in, and it will be.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. Well, Allan, very positive, very feel-good stuff there. I wonder if that's going to continue because
Nope.
Cue it up, Max. It's time.
Oh, your humanity.
It's Allan's Week in Review, which is it's really a mixed bag. Sometimes Allan, when you were replacing all those sinks, that was a pretty positive,
wonderful
experience. You were taking proactive measures to update the facility where you work. But Allan's Week in Review is always we don't know what we're going to get. We're going to hear about what you did this week, and you told us this was fairly epic.
This is going to be epic.
Okay.
I got a call this week from a project manager who asked me to come confirm that he had just been involved in a new project and that he had lost his mind and the ability to count.
Well, it happens.
I drive over, and this is what happens when jobs get crew after crew after crew behind each other. Not necessarily
not
connected.
communicating, I bet.
So he was the new project manager on it, and of they were doing window dressings. So they were taking down paper and they were putting up the window, the accoutrements like the blinds and stuff like that.
Right.
And he had walked around the inside of the building and through the different rooms, and he had counted up his windows and, make sure he had the right number of blinds and all that kind of stuff. And then he went out to his truck and realized one of the windows hadn't been dressed.
What do you mean dressed?
The paper was still up, the blue tape, just keep the window from getting broken.
Okay.
So, but the window hadn't been cleaned. The paper hadn't come down.
Okay.
And
I never heard that term dressed. That's interesting.
You dress a window. You put window dressing. You put the draperies or the blinds or whatever they're going to do in there.
Okay, gotcha.
So you dress your window.
Yeah. I'm always at the construction end of it.
Right. Well, we're at the finishing side of this.
Okay.
And I got over there and we walked around it with him, and everything looked okay. So we walked around and, there's the windows and da-da-da-da-da.
Doesn't sound epic yet, Allan.
Well, however, went, let's start counting.
Okay, here we go.
So we got 1Z, 2Z, 3Z, 4Z, 5Z, 6Z. Okay, let's go outside. And we go outside and we go 1Z, 2Z, 3Z, 4Z, 5Z, 6Z.
I hope you weren't saying 1Z. That sounds a little weird.
And then I went, 7Z.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
So there are 7 windows on the outside of this building, but there are 6 windows on the inside of this building.
For some reason, there's this episode of Third Rock from the Sun where these guys get trapped in a hole, and this hole master comes in and he said, there's this one hole. 12 men entered, 14 came out.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so I think I know how this happens, but go ahead and...
Yeah, well, you want to take a stab?
My stab is that somebody on the inside of this place put up a wall or put something up and covered the window.
Yep, they did.
And they didn't take that into account. So you got to count from the inside and the outside.
And bless his heart, he was just going, what?
He's walking around the inside counting.
So, yeah. So, we now I have to admit, we both had to walk this thing about 2 or 3 times to finally really get the magnitude and measure and go, all right, this window on the outside is X distance from the door. So we went inside, went to the door, got the tape measure, and we're like, and somebody put up a wall. Welcome to somebody covered it up. They left the window and just
I have opinions
over
about
the inside of that.
Okay, well, go ahead. Can I say my opinion about that?
Dive in.
I just feel like that is a recipe for disaster. I've seen this. I've seen it with people. Maybe they have a finished attic, or they do. There's some reason why that window is an obstruction or something. But instead of taking it out, and I feel like moisture can still get through in some way. It's still a window, and now you are putting sheetrock or whatever you're putting there, or wood or something, in an area that you can't reach. It can't breathe. It's getting moisture. I feel like that's a recipe for mold. It's a headquarters for bugs. I just think it's a bad idea. So
and
am I wrong, Allan?
Oh no! And thus he's now got a little extra added to his project.
Yeah,
because and it was just one of those. And this is where I'm going to say, for the homeowner, if you've got a project, take a few minutes. And I don't care how bad of an artist you are, because heaven knows I couldn't draw a straight line if you held a gun on me.
Yeah.
But you need to kind of map out your project. And this is whether you're doing stuff in the yard or you're doing stuff in the house. You just got through doing a kitchen remodel, and I promise I know you did a lot of measuring.
Oh, yeah.
Because you were replacing a counter.
Right.
And, I mean, honestly.
In a kitchen that wasn't square. So,
in a non-standard kitchen from the 50s.
Yeah.
And when you took out the dishwasher, what happened?
Well, yeah, I mean, we know that we don't want to rehash my misery, Al, but yeah, I discovered bad workmanship, or butchery, as we call it. So,
and basically, this is an example of this year's 30 years of stupid sending it down to the future. Because somebody didn't count the windows, read the plans. Somebody didn't think this through. So they're honestly creating an issue for the future.
So wait, I guess what I'm wondering is, are you going to order a window? How are you going to tackle this? Because, well, you know my feelings about this. I mean, I probably
actually the solution is going to be artwork.
What do you mean?
Well,
Okay.
since we already have this nice recess in the wall, why not take advantage of it?
Is this a commercial property?
Yeah, this is a commercial property.
So that's where that's where the mosaic's going to go.
That's where exactly. And I was kind of like, well, looking at this as an opportunity.
There you go.
Because now we can turn this into a known feature of the wall, and that way we don't have to worry about what happened inside. And, now we can just take one more step and alleviate this for the future.
Right. Well,
Don't leave it.
Yeah.
Let's alleviate it. Let's take the next step forward.
Yeah, because one other thing to mention is windows need to be cleaned. And if you can't clean the inside and it's covered with cobwebs and dirt and mold, it's just going to get worse.
It's got brown paper all over it. It's just going to look terrible.
Yeah, so that's a good solution.
So the solution here was think outside the box a little bit and go, all right, this is a terrible thing. Somebody should have looked. Well, let's take it as an advantage and go, well, let's take it to the next step.
Yeah.
What can we do with this space?
Right.
What would be really cool if why don't you use this as where to put the artwork? It's already cut, just measure it, make sure your artwork's going to fit it, make sure it's properly installed and sealed, no problem.
And did they like that solution?
Yes, thank goodness. Yeah, thank goodness. But it was just this dumbfounding moment when you're standing there and your brain is trying to tell you that ain't here on the inside. Because you will do this. You'll walk outside and look at it. You'll walk back inside and stare at that wall. Then you'll walk back outside and look at the window. You'll walk back inside again and go, wow.
It's like
wow.
It's like a mental Mobius strip,
Well,
is the new name for my band, by the way. So
Or it's like the Winchester House.
yeah.
Well,
it doesn't
but
make
I
sense.
found this in houses over the years where there used to be a door here and they decided we're going to remodel and they just left stuff in the walls.
Yeah.
Of the remodeling at the Chattanooga Choo Choo back in the 50s, they just sheetrocked over all of the beautiful wrought iron and stained glass work from the turn of the century. They just sheetrocked right over it. Boom,
I don't know
all the
if
way
I
down
like
the wall.
that, but yeah.
And when they went to do remodeling a couple of years ago and they began removing the sheetrock to, do something new with it, they discovered all of this original ironwork and stained glass. And the architect immediately went, oh, have I got an idea?
Yeah,
We're
sounds like
cleaning all this off and bringing all this back.
Well, let's face it. A lot of these things happen just because of budget. Somebody doesn't have the money to restore everything, so they just cover it up.
Well,
or they don't,
when you're looking at older houses, you are going to find things like this. That's why I wanted to bring this up was, as you're working on your house, you're making discoveries, both pleasant and unpleasant.
Mostly unpleasant.
Mostly unpleasant. But, as you
Yeah.
go through, you just don't know what somebody did 50 years ago or 70 years ago.
Well, Allan, in terms of one of Allan's Week in Review stories, I don't know if it was epic, but it was good, and it was dynamic thinking, and it was problem solving in a creative way. And hey, you're celebrating the arts. You're going to put a piece of art there.
That would just seem to be the obvious solution. Was just kind of like, well, you already cut a hole in the wall, so. Yep.
But it's also the importance of bringing a second pair of eyes on and collaborating, because that's when problems get solved.
Walk those plans, and as I like to say, walk and talk.
There you go.
And I was just thinking of something too. I also like to think of the idea of like with any art, whether it be a craftsmanship or even martial arts, I like the idea of calm breeds creativity.
That's a good point.
If you approach this, if Allan hadn't approached the situation with a level of calm, then he wouldn't have been able to come up with a creative solution that he did.
I think that's true. When you run around, panicking and stuff,
oh my
you don't get
gosh,
very
look what
creative.
these idiots did, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes you can look at it and go,
There's an opportunity.
this might actually be a great idea.
All right. Hey, Allan, I'm gonna do my best to get to everything we tease. So let's shift gears. That's a good one. I think that was a very feel good in terms of Allan's Week in Review. I don't think it deserved that chilling music that Max played at all.
I don't care. I just felt like pushing the button.
Okay.
Oh, it was chilling when we found it. Trust me.
Okay, so Allan, this week we've had it was kind of an annoying week because we had a 3-phase ice storm, which thankfully for us, I know other listeners maybe they got hit worse, but the Mid-South did dodge a lot of the problems. But there was 3 waves of water and bits of freezing rain and just a little bit of snow that came down. And but it showcased the importance of having the right kind of infrastructure for your city. And the funny thing about Memphis is, I mean, depending on when your house was built, you might be out in Collierville where everything's new and all your wires are underground or everything. But it showcases and maybe in the Midtown, you're living in a house that's 100 and something years old.
You might be.
It showcases the importance of a good infrastructure. And it's not easy to, have one unified infrastructure because let's face it, we've got there's budgets in mind. There's changing technologies, everything like that. However, infrastructure is a big deal, and I feel like also creating, if nothing else, creating a good infrastructure for your home. But Allan, on the way here this morning, this really kind of showcased the problem of city planning. I was driving here, and 2 blocks from my house, there was water, and it was literally, I don't know how to describe it other than there was a crack in the street and water was just pouring out of this crack. It was about 20 feet wide or something like that, flooding that whole street and the drain. Somebody's going to wake up to a surprise. But I've seen, we've seen broken water lines. We've seen that type of thing. But this is a city problem, right? This is different. This isn't somebody's home that caused this, right?
This wasn't a burst pipe in your attic or your wall.
What was I seeing?
What you were looking at there was one of your pressured water mains bringing water to an area, and several different things can happen. One, you could have had subterranean water around it that expanded and possibly cracked the pipe. The other more likely
is that caused by like a sinkhole, and then maybe suddenly the pipe's exposed to cold air that it wasn't when it was buried or something?
Or it got surrounded by water that froze, because we've had several days below freezing. So, the trick is it's not that one night where it gets to 31. It's that 3 days.
That constant.
And sometimes water can get into those joints between the pipes and push them apart also just a little bit. Ice. Ice is a very strong force. Right,
yeah. I guess the only thing I'm thinking is in a situation like this, it's probably easier to dig up the street there because it's, they're going to find this thing.
Yeah, they're going to have to dig it up.
The street's going to be closed. But I think, Allan, let's circle back next week because I think, you can create an infrastructure of your home. You don't have to just rely strictly on the grid, you could say, so.
Right.
And preparing for when things are going to fail, which they always do, especially here in the Mid-South. We always get that week or two of weird weather. We get extremes, and so we'll circle back on that real quick. I want to remind everybody, though, next week we're going to be broadcasting live from the home show of the Mid-South, February 11th. The show's going on all weekend. We'll probably be there a good chunk of the weekend, Allan. But February 10th through 12th, the tickets are really affordable. It's a fun event. It's a great place to go and get ideas for your home. You can meet the contractors directly. Our good buddy Jay Hill, Big M Roofing and Remodeling, will be have a big presence there, and we hope you'll stop by and say hello to us. And maybe caller 732 will be there, Allan.
You never know.
You mean Agent 732?
Agent 732, and maybe Robbie and Angel and everybody else will show up.
Get the crew out there.
Get the crew out there, and so it's going to be a lot of fun. But Allan, we're out of time, man.
Wow, that went quick.
These 2 hours go fast. So anyway, on behalf of my buddy Allan Gilbreth and our pal Max over there behind the glass, I'm Joe Thorderson. Thanks for listening to Tool Talk Radio, and we'll see you next week.